Group 11 decided to research a company called LyondellBasell Refinery Company, which is located on the Houston coastline. During late August and early September, the operations of Texas Industries were drastically altered by Hurricane Harvey. We were able to explore the supply chain operations and issues for LyondellBasell and what were their solutions to the gas shortage that we all experienced. LyondellBasell's Houston location was originally built in 1918 and was originally operated by Sinclair Refining, but changed ownership in 2006 and changed its name to LyondellBasell. LyondellBasell is located on 700 acres in the Houston Channel and was once one of the largest refining companies in the shipping area around. LyondellBasell produces 268 barrels of fuel a day, which is then shipped throughout Texas and other surrounding areas. During Hurricane Harvey, LyondellBasell was one of the only refining companies to continue producing fuel for Texas and delivering fuel to the gas stations that were out of gasoline. Other refining decided to stop operation altogether, which pretty much is the reason why the gas shortage happened and panic occurred. Since minimal gas was being produced and shipped to the gas stations, that's when all the hoarding of the gas that everybody saw during that time was occurring. LyondellBasell decided to take matters into their own hands and gave back to the community and did a lot of community outreach during this time by supplying personal protective equipment, clothing, food, any other type of supplies that were needed for rescue workers, for family members, medical personnel. They volunteered their time and donated a lot of money and supplies for the efforts during this time.
Hi, my name is Kirby Dyer, and I'm going to tell you about the next few slides we have. This picture you see here is a picture of what on many television sets across South Texas in late August 2017. It's a picture of a warning that would have came across the news letting citizens know that Hurricane Harvey was now a Category 4. It had winds of 130 miles per hour, and it was getting close to landfall. This next picture here is a picture of some of the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey. This picture shows several things. The first thing I want to point out is a lot of times during difficult times, you see a lot of the negative, but this picture actually reflects some of the positive. The trucks lined up here are citizens who showed up in order to assist those in need, to help rescue people from floodwaters and help in any way they could. Another thing about this picture here is it reflects the roadways and what a lot of roadways look like in South Texas shortly after the storm. There was mass flooding all over South Texas. As a result of the many road closures due to flooding, many citizens began to panic that gas stations would run out of gas. Once the refineries got word that Hurricane Harvey would be hitting, some of them shut completely down and others minimized some of their production in order to prevent damage. And as a result, some citizens became scared that the gas stations would run out of fuel. So in order to satisfy themselves, they began hoarding gasoline and they rushed to gas stations began filling up not only their vehicles, containers as well, and this caused a temporary gasoline shortage in South Texas.
The overall chemical process of creating what we know as gasoline is complex as compared to what the supply chain really is. The supply chain consists of 3 steps. We have the upstream, midstream, and then downstream. Upstream being exploration, the finding of pockets and reservoirs for crude oil. This often is then moved over to midstream process. This is where you see pipelines and shipping crates or shipping tankers moving this found crude oil in the upstream process to be transferred to stage. Midstream followed by downstream is where we reach our refineries. These refineries go through the process of mixing chemicals to create what we know either as petroleum, gasoline, or any kind of products that refinery is stated to produce. Oftentimes, polymers, plastics, and other products can be made here. From the downstream process, we then move into our tankers that we know that are familiar with, 18-wheelers that deliver these chemicals and gasoline, petroleum to stores such as Valero, Shell, Exxon, for us to use as consumers. Now, of course, we want the supply chain to move as easily as possible, often facing daily challenges. Of course, you throw in an impact such as Hurricane Harvey, and those challenges then amplified. We look at environmental challenges such as air and water that could mix in with chemicals currently being processed at the upstream process or even through the midstream process, causing breakage through the transportation of the crude oil. You've also had the loss in revenue due to the stoppage of any kind of refinery work. Our specific site did haul back on their crude oil production while Exxon and completely delayed their processes. You also have transportation issues due to lane closures or highway closures. This stops the transportation from the refineries to the gas stations, of course affecting ultimately the consumer. Going into refinery damage, now this of course can affect the company also from the stop in production, because these parts do need to be replaced, but they can't be replaced until the rest of the world continues. So oftentimes those refinery damages aren't just costly to repair piece-wise, but also in process-wise. And finally, flooding ties in quite well with the transportation aspect, but the flooding can come from not only in street-wise causing transportation issues, but the flooding that could overfill certain refineries or even excessive water haul.
As Hurricane Harvey approached, refineries started to pay very close attention to how the storm was growing. Managers started looking at how to minimize damages to plants and machines. Once the storm reached a Category 4 hurricane and was predicted to hit at that level, managers knew that they needed to start shutting down refineries and move as many machines out of harm's way as possible. After this storm, and they knew that they would still be able to produce fuel and move it out to consumers. Even though they weren't able to produce at full capacity, they knew it was still imperative to get fuel out to the areas. There was a slight delay of fuel for a matter of a short couple weeks, which brought on an appreciation for the operation and supply process in the oil and gas industry. We're so fortunate to live in such a great country where a lot of times how truly fortunate we are.